an extra cent and buy extra car. And not take from the taxpayers.
Thanks a million for that beautiful speech. I think we really were fortunate to have those, weighty words being shared. I wished that there should have been more people to listen to that kind of speech from the Honorable Premier. Thank you. Yes. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to open up to, question time from journalists, relating to details around the book, what you want to know, and so on. You are free to ask, any of us collectively. I'm talking about the four of us, collectively. It's always safe to be in a collective. Yeah. So you are free to do that. And if there are no questions, because I think we have sufficiently, explained the book to you. And it also gives you an opportunity to do some research and to read the book. You know how beautiful this book is. I would never have said this. I would never have imagined it. There are people who read this book and they come to us holding this book. They want to kiss the book. That's how very it is amazing. It invokes serious passions which are in deep recesses of people, this kind of book. And I'm hoping that it will touch you in the same way as well.
Just take questions, we'll take the first one.
Hi, I'm Kanina Fuss from the Star. I just wanted to point out that our Honourable MC for the morning has humbly neglected to introduce himself, and I was wondering if one of the other members of the panel could do that on his behalf. And
I am so sorry. As they say, we are always selfless people. People first and us last. My name is Templeton Marquez. I'm Pops. People call me generally Pops. I know when people hear that your name is Pops, they tend to giggle. But, as opposed to Templeton, it's really an incident that I've always preferred throughout my life. But it came about as a nickname, and it's a very special nickname from someone very special, my great-grandmother, and I've kept it ever since. I'm a lawyer, I'm an attorney. You can go through my portion of the autobiography, and I think my work there speaks for itself, and I think lots of people know about that work. So, I don't know if that helps.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to ask, secondly, how long it took you to write the book, and what were some of the challenges that you encountered along the way?
May you please also introduce yourself and tell us which organization was.
It's very difficult because I don't think that a book is the kind of entity that you can say, I started on this particular day with this book. There are too many times when you talk among yourself to say, we need to document this, we need to write this. But you tend to go back and maybe identify only a particular period where you physically started to write a book. If you are asking me, allow me to us to write the book, in a technical sense, I will say to you from last year, let's say from around April, May in particular, we really technically, physically got involved and got engaged in the process of writing the book. In terms of the resource material that we used, we have a beautiful facility that South Africa, has produced for itself. It is called SAHA, South African Historical Archives. Please, people, I ask you to go there. When you go there, sometimes, you get irritated when people tell you it's closing time, you have to go. Because there is so much information that is available at SAHA. This is where we did our research, and the SAHA is housed within the William Cullen Library at Bethal University. You know, across the road is the Walton Whaler Library. You know, I personally had, you know, a very fulfilling period doing my research at William Cullen, because when I was doing my first year and second year at University of Fort Hare and I used to come home, I used to study and research at the library opposite, that is the Walton Whaler. So that connection for me brought a lot of memories, the physicality of the place. You know, it does bring a lot of memories to me. So, in terms of resource, that is the resource that we've used. We've used Sarah, William Cullen. We've even acknowledged in the book the ladies that assisted us extensively there. So, you know, just to answer you, that is when we started, you know, writing the book. Of course, as you know, in South Africa, and unfortunately there's a reality. The reality is that this type of industry is, again, another closed industry which requires the competition commission. I think the competition commission has to come into this industry. You know, in this industry, first of all, you know, if you are looking for someone to do anything for you, people know each other, right? And some of the skills are exceedingly technical. And you know, I'm glad you asked me that question because I want to introduce to you Dick Pluto. He's sitting at the back here. Dick himself has a whole political background that's associated with our own MK activities exceedingly long ago and careering, but we will not go to that because that's not the book we have written. That is Dick Pluto. You know, Dick, you can just say that, please. Dick is an editor. He does what is called editing. Now, you as newspaper writers, you will know that when you write something, you always need somebody to edit your material. I have a long-standing gripe with Dick. Dick knows that the first part of our book, which is the write-up on the actual trial itself, when I was doing the work, at some stage it was running at about 120 pages. I remember Dick. And Dick kept on carrying quite a lot of stuff, saying, you're repeating yourself, you're repeating yourself, you're repeating yourself. I said, Dick, I can't understand what you're talking about. But that's him. He's really carrying us a lot in terms of editing. And then, of course, you're going to need typesetting. Typesetting is costly. We use the company called the Icon Agency. Insofar as, you know, other technical item-related information and work, we had a company, you know, some young chaps, I'm just forgetting their name now, but they are all acknowledged in the book. So, but the main challenge with the book now is really getting it disseminated, getting it read, getting it being written about. You know, you have no idea. From May, we have struggled exceedingly so. We were like hitting a complete wall. It wasn't an experience that we were being denied. It was, there's a wall. You just can't go beyond that wall. You know, our newspapers are employing columnists, our own people that understand this struggle. They come from that era. They are employed there as columnists. They write for these papers every day. You know what they write about? They write about their own books. They write about their own nonsense every day. And they continue to repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. You say to them, look, give us something. They will never do that. Because now, not only are they writing about their own things, now those books that they are writing, they are also having them shown, you know, as, you know, plays at the Grahamstown Arts Festival. So he's there, he's here, he's everywhere. Your book, he takes it, he puts quite a level. But that's not just only our own brothers. We have to take issue with them because they are our own. But of course, there are also, you know, people of other races that also, you know, give us serious impediments around getting the book out there, the information about it disseminated. And those are some of the challenges.
Cedric Voice from the Citizen newspaper. Mr. Marquez, you pointed out that the presiding judge in the Bethal trial was quite racist. Did your defense attorney apply for his recusal at the time? And the other question would be the issue of transformation of the judiciary in South Africa. Do you think there are still a number of racist remnants in the judiciary? Do you think there has been enough transformation?
Look, insofar as Judge Ken Lewis Look, you must remember that at the time, I myself was very, very young. I was about 20 years of age. And, you know, I came there for a specific reason. I was, my family was approached, you can read. My family was approached by the law firm of Mutande and Associates. At the time when I had made the decision personally that I was going to be a lawyer, I was at high school. And they approached my family to say that they needed my services to join the defense team in order to contradict testimony which had been tendered by state witnesses who had been in detention. Those state witnesses were the ones who were from Greece at the time. Not only myself, there was Churchill, Boy, and Churchill Boy, there was also Lawrence Clover sitting over there. There were probably about 8 or 9 defense witnesses who comprised us, and a few others who have unfortunately passed away. And that's how we got into the trial. So, in terms of the record, having gone through the record, there is at no stage where the defense specifically requested they applied for the recusal of K. Lewis. K. Lewis was really a judge who was completely blinded by the state. K. Lewis had been out of isolation. He was really hardly, you know, a member of the bar at the time. He was a bit of an alcoholic. Those are facts. And he was taken to Bethal. There's a train that was specifically provided for the coach. Throughout that winter, K. Lewis was there, alcoholic as he was. And the first thing that transpired was the indictment on the accused. I never loved, no lawyer, defense lawyer uses that term. The defendants, right? And Charles Nelson has always said this in all his trials, that he doesn't want to call his clients who are the defendants accused. You know, what transpired was the indictment, what we call today the charge sheet, it was called the indictment these days, was served under in prison on the 8th of December, 1977. The trial was set down for the 17th of January, 1978. All advocates, not only was the court in recess, all advocates were not available to consult with them, to prepare for their trial. But on the 17th, when the matter came before court, there was only one advocate. It was Judge Louis Quay, the one who's Judge Louis Quay here now. He was a junior. He came there purely for the purpose of asking for a postponement, which was something very natural. You know, the interest of justice, there's a long list of line of cases which are authoritative for the fact that an accused person has to be given enough time to prepare his case, particularly where the charges against him are weighty. But K. Lewis refused to postpone the case on the 17th of January. He insisted that Judge Quayle must take up the defense and the matter must start with only one advocate for a total number of 18 accused, with horrendous charges against them. That was the first problem. The only concession was made by the state hospital that the matter can be postponed perhaps purely for convenience for 2 weeks. And that's what K. Lewis decided to accept. He said, the state has been very magnanimous to the accused. The state has conceded to for you to go and prepare yourself. I myself would never have agreed to that, but the state has considered it, and I will give you a 2-week postponement. But on that date, I want your counsel here, I want this matter to start. It is going to start on that day. That was at the end of that month. At the end of that month, a number of senior counsel appeared. They were briefed by Salve. Cooper, Alexander, Wolf Alexander, a whole range of advocates. You know, more human rights related advocates. You know, we know those who are doing that kind of work to appear then. And the trial really did start to proceed. But unfortunately, immediately after I started proceeding, the first decision we made was that the matter must be heard in camera in terms of Section 158 of the Criminal Procedure Act, which had been, you know, just recently introduced. You can imagine the trial is starting in January of 1978. He is applying a section which has just come in terms of the Criminal Procedure Act 51 of 1977. The section is new. It has no interpretation. No other court has interpreted this section. This section relates to the question of whether witnesses in certain instances can be protected by a court, and the court uses discretion to have a trial held in camera in order to protect these witnesses from the potential violence that they would meet in the townships when they go back after having given testimony against these accused. So that was the reason why Kelly decided that the matter should be held in camera to protect, a specific state witness, and that state witness is among us. Everybody knows about him. That was the second thing. So recusal, no. Well, in terms so far as the question of whether there are remnants of that, you really see it. You are a newspaperman, you read it about it every day. The Judicial Services Commission has just had an interview with one other person of that type. And we know what is going on, that in South Africa, the legal fraternity is split right now. And there is no other way. It probably is something that has to happen in terms of the migration of the legal fraternity. In the sense that there is still certain resistance, but it's very inevitable, it's very obvious that black lawyers are going to ultimately ascend to the control of the judiciary. And it really is more sometimes a waste of time to have these arguments, with the people who are resisting that. So, I hope I didn't want to...
Yeah, you did answer. Just a follow-up question. It will be my last question, I promise. Do you think there is a racist agenda against Cape Judge President John Lopez? If so, is it driven by some element within the judiciary? Would you support him for his position? I mean, what would you support him for the Chief Justice position when Chief Justice Press Nana stepped down?
Will you support? This is our
You see, it is not fair. You see, the only thing I can comment on is that we have actually signed the book. We have sent him a letter a long time ago. We have expressed our support. That doesn't mean we agree with everything that surrounds him. And insofar as a racist agenda, I think to a certain extent, there are some elements of that, in the situation. But look, at the end of the day, lawyering assists you with this knowledge and understanding that there is nothing that is either black or white in any society. So I don't know. I think maybe that's about more than enough.
Hi, my name is Ananda from Metro FM. The Honorable MEC spoke of the use of indigenous languages. So are there any plans in place to translate this into one of the South African, isiZulu or Xhosa,
Yes, well, given the dimensions that are involved here, we would welcome that. Okay. We are open to it and we can improvise.
But I'm just thinking this is meant for our people, and it's fact that a lot of people are illiterate, so, yeah.
Ma'am, that is the direction we are looking at, and we welcome any effort to us.
Just take the last round and then
Nick from Texting Newspapers.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is the first edition. I would like to see you guys coming up with the second edition.
Thank you. My name is Kanima Kubane and I'm from Media Club South Africa. Excuse me, I have a question that's sort of like got three parts. This book is going to be adopted by the province to form part of its political literature heritage collection, and it's going to go into libraries and it's going to go into the schools to educate the people like the MEC spoke. But the problem I'm having, for instance, is, a friend tells me that the way they're teaching what apartheid was in schools is so different to the reality of what it was. Because a child comes and says, but mommy, teacher told me it wasn't that bad. And so there's a sense of watering down in schools in terms of our syllabus. And with this going into that public space, I wanted to find out from the MEC and perhaps from the Premier as well, how do you intend on actually ensuring that what is happening in our schools, in the same way that we were taught history, we were taught apartheid history, we were taught the real thing, how it happened, you know, how we make sure that these books are really not watered down within that system, and that they are seen as a crucial part of history and not that part of history that should be swept under the carpet. We're going to be working with the Department of Education to create a new type of attitude to teaching South African contemporary history.
What has been an advantage with Gauteng is that we have already started looking at teaching history in a different way. We've started with our ECDs. Remember, your early childhood development centers are a responsibility of provincial government. There are kids in Soweto who are in Gauteng government-owned ECDs. Part of what we have been able to do, for example, kids in Soweto must know who Hector Peterson is. So rather than them doing Jan Bali, Dagom Jan Bali, I'm telling you, they are already talking about who is Ellen Kuzwan, you know, and you go to their centers. When they do the stories, the teachers and stuff, they will do it in a manner that is easy for the children and so forth. And I think one thing that we need to do, if we have to rewrite history and to tell as it is, we must start with the young. Start at an ECD level and move from the ECD into your entry levels, because it will not help for us to target your high school if you do not actually deal with this, you don't actually conscientize them and make sure that they've got this self-pride and identity of being kids of a nation that has been so polarized. So indeed, we have already started in the province. And we also are responsible for our libraries. One of the things that we are prioritizing as our program in the Department of Arts and Culture and Heritage, together with the Department of Education, is promotion of our heritage. Our teachers and many of our children who say, but mommy, it was not that bad. It's my daughter who is in the school across the road in Roti. And the child who is in Musubazi, nothing is being said about our history. Our public schools don't say much. And that's exactly what we need to do. That part of what we need to also put, and that's what MEC Chris is coming up with, is that our children must be taught to read, must be encouraged to read. Because that's one of the things that has become a problem. So through reading, we need to provide alternative material that they must actually start reading. When I was a teenager, I was attracted to James Hadley Chase. I didn't have chance, and then go to Mills and Boons if I'm trying to be a bit romantic. But then there was this pressure also of having to go and run a civic movement and my street committee. And I had to leave those things because they couldn't help me with anything on how to see the future. And there was access. There was learn and teach. There was alternative press. Government can't rely on that. Government must use its strength, and government must use its institutions to deal with those things. So I'm saying this approach of taking and accumulating alternative material and information, it's a conscious decision by Gauteng provincial government to provide alternative information that has got integrity. If my daughter has to do a project around the student uprisings, she must not get a book written by somebody from Canada about this gentleman. Yes. She must be. So I'm saying there's nothing that stops that. You need a set work about the history of the student movement in South Africa. So that then even our students who are in the leadership of student movement must understand that they can't continue to be klepkoyers like Nomvula. I've done it, it's over. They must now defend what we have called for. They now have teachers, students, parents, representative bodies, the SGBs. They must defend those gains of the revolution. And they can only defend if they understand their past. So it's that I'm saying, we support what the National Minister of Higher Education has said, that we must write afresh. If this is a moment of renewal, we must insist on these issues. The curriculum must help us such that not only language, but also content, history, becomes something that builds a true South African. And And I'm saying, watch the space. Our libraries will no longer be having all these many other things. And please contribute. Contribute books like I Write What I Like. You know, it will be good because that's a book that helps me to be a bit militant and put a black polonet, not wash my head and thought it's revolutionary. You know, and it was about self-identity and pride. And so it's those little things that are important. My child must know that being in an affluent school doesn't mean she's not African. And she was not born in an easy environment. It's an environment where people have sacrificed for her to be where she is. So I'm saying, as long as I'm the Premier of Gauteng with my MECs and the mandate that we have about building social cohesion and national unity, we have to do that. We also have to talk about Flag Plus here in Gauteng. What was Flag Plus? So that then there must be also a balance. There must be a balance, but also there must be a balance that says there were other good white Afrikaners called Beyers Notier. They must know. But they must also know that there were other horrible blacks who colluded against other blacks. So that then our children can understand these issues and not think that black and white are black and white. That it was a divergence of views, it was an embracement of wrong and right things, and that you had many other people. You only didn't have a divorce, but you also had a bizarre, even during those trying times. You didn't have your guys that were in Flag Plus. You also have people like Dick. That's what our children must know. But nobody is going to say it if we don't do it. And I'm saying we have an opportunity that we are a government that has got a mandate to do this thing. Because building houses and roads and a nation that is ill-informed, that's why people do not appreciate a road, a clinic, because they don't know where we come from. Like yesterday, that clinic was not there. And not there because government did not have money, but it was a conscious agenda that we don't deserve a better clinic in a township. So it's these kind of things. As I'm saying, for me, this is an emotional thing that says, indeed, a moment of renewal. Indeed, a moment of renewal. The rapture has happened. Let's take advantage of the call by the president. And I think it happened just a week after the call for 67 minutes. And I'm saying, let's live the Mandela life. And in everything that we do, let's tell it as it is, but let's embrace everybody. And let's focus on what is good now for the country. And let our schools become that site. Let them become a site for renewal. There can't be any other thing, those schools. Our children must not just be literate and know how to count and be able to do BCom. They must also become South Africans, and we must use our sites as sites for teaching. She's the MEC for Arts and Culture, Sports, Recreation and Heritage, but she must make sure that these libraries become relevant. They must be relevant. Our children can't only rely on Google and Twitter and everything. They must also rely on what we bring before them, so that then they can know better. So I'm saying, watch the space. We're going to do the unusual, so that then we're able to make sure that we build a new nation. We start here in Gauteng and we contribute to the call by the president of a moment of renewal. Ne?
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for gracing this occasion. We highly appreciate your attendance. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
You can write one chapter. No, that's it. And I think that's much. I did hear. That's fine. Thank you. Thanks. That's my PA. She can get me everywhere. In fact, you can connect wherever you Yes, yes. Okay.
And I'm sure it's going to be a fun.
It's over. Sure.
Dr. Vice President, any profits?
Yes. No, we went to visit and buy cars. So that we don't get it. Thank you. I'm going to love and live with you.
It was busy.
Were you there?
I was there.
Follow by Peterson. Yes. Yes, that's you know how to get hold of me now. I tell you about the Heritage Month program. I said to them, so we're looking at this thing about unstanding.
Why did we ban the
Right. I read. I'm falling hard.